Hey everybody, this is D Hunter, bringing another action figure review. Today, we're going to look at the McFarlane DC Batman Classic TV Series 1966 Adam West TV show, Mr. Freeze. And this is the version played by Otto Preminger. I got this guy at Target, so let's take a look at the packaging. As you can see at the top, DC, McFarlane Toys, Batman Classic TV Series, ages 12+. Here's Mr. Freeze in the package. He comes with two of those sort of action bubble effects from the TV show, also featured in the comics. But what's missing is Freeze Ray. Warner Brothers has a no gun mandate. Any officially licensed DC figures cannot come with guns in any way, shape, or form, even a sci-fi type gun like Mr. Freeze's Freeze Ray. Although none of the 1966 figures have accessories at all. So who knows if it's Warner Brothers or just McFarlane not giving it to him. Either way, I've got plenty of free rays to give this guy. On the back side, you can see Freeze from the TV show, and here's his barcode, in case that helps anybody. And as always, I got one of these figures to keep unopened, and one to open and enjoy. One's going to stay in my complete, unopened, Batman-related action figure collection, and I do have a funny story about this guy. So I went to one Target, looking for some stuff. I found one I was looking for there, and I had him punch in the DCPI for Mr. Freeze. They told me they didn't have him, but they told me which Target did, and it wasn't that far away. So I went ahead and called that Target. I asked them if I give a number, if they could locate the item. The guy in the electronics section was working the truck right now. He said he hadn't come across that box yet. Oh wait, here it is. So he said he had the figure in hand. I said, okay, well do you have at least two of them? I'd like to buy two. I knew they come in boxes of 6. He told me their policy was it's a limit of 1 collectible per customer. And I said, I don't actually think that's a policy. I've been shopping at Target for many, many years. He said, sorry, limit 1. I said, well, I'll come up there just to get the 1, but hopefully you'll sell me 2. Anyway, I went up to the store. I went to the peg. I saw one lone Mr. Freeze hanging there, so obviously he stocked 1 and backstocked the other 5. Went up to the guy at electronics, who I knew was the same guy. I said, hey, I called earlier looking for Mr. Freeze. He said, yeah, it's over there on the shelf. I said, okay. Well, I was really hoping to get 2 of them. He said, sorry. Company policy is 1 collectible per person. I said, I don't think that's actually a policy. I've been shopping at Target for collectibles for a long time. He said, well, the other ones are kind of beat up anyway. I said, well, that works out perfect. I open one, I don't open the other one. He said, sorry, just 1 per day, per customer. If you want to come back tomorrow, you can get another one. I said, I'm not trying to be that guy, but I don't think that's actually a rule. I said, could I speak to your manager and possibly they'll override you? He took his handheld device, threw it on the floor, said, fuck, and then he reached in the drawer, gave me the other one. I said, hey, not trying to be an asshole. Appreciate you. Thank you. He wouldn't even look at me at that point. He was fuming. I don't really understand why he was so opposed to me getting 2 of them. I'd understand maybe if I wanted all 6, and it was obviously not for me and I was going to flip them online. But that's not the case. I just wanted 2 for myself. Long story short, I won the battle for Mr. Freeze. Here's the entire McFarlane 1966 Batman collection. I've got everything that's out so far. The next thing releasing is going to be the Villain's Lair. I'm really excited for that. And there's also the black and white Batman and Robin. And I don't know what's coming after that. Alright, now that we got this figure out of the package, here he is with all of his accessories laid out. He doesn't come with any traditional accessories, but he has 2 of these action bubble effects. He is missing his Freeze Ray, which really sucks, but none of the 1966 McFarlane figures have accessories at all. But before we take a look at those, let's talk about and check out the actual figure. This is Mr. Freeze, played by Otto Preminger. 2 different actors played Mr. Freeze, and I hope we get the other one as well. So, looking at his face, he's got that white skin, the orange eyebrows. He's got this odd thing sort of around his head, no helmet. All these sort of old school dials and knobs, electronic stuff. Looks very sci-fi. His outfit is in a very light blue. He's got the silver gloves, silver boots. Looks like single jointed elbow, single jointed knee. Overall, I think he's a really cool version of Mr. Freeze, and pretty screen accurate. Minor correction, there were actually 3 different actors to play Mr. Freeze in the 1966 show. Ellie Wallach, Otto Preminger, and George Sanders. I hope they make a figure of each one. And just a closer look at his face and head sculpt, I think they did an excellent job with this guy's face. Now to take a look at his accessories, we have these action bubble effects, which the 1966 series was well known for. One of them is yellow, says bonk. These will attach to his wrists. And the other one is orange and says clank. At this point, I've gotten about 1 million of these things, and there's going to be more before it's all said and done. Here's Mr. Freeze punching Batman with his action effect. Bonk. And speaking of accessories, he needs a freeze ray. I pulled out all the different Mr. Freeze guns that I have in my collection. Now those Mattel ones on the left with the big backpack, there's no way those are going to work for him. They're way too big. His freeze ray in the TV show was a real sci-fi looking gun, so I'll try a couple of these out. Here's an image of this Mr. Freeze holding his freeze gun from the TV show. It's a very sci-fi looking weapon. I don't really have one that even remotely looks like that, so I found he can hold more than one of these freeze guns. Here's an example of one of the guns. Trigger finger even fits into the trigger area just fine. Here's another freeze gun that can fit into his hand. This one's a little bit too big for him. And I'll tell you, these two black ones, the color scheme just doesn't match this Mr. Freeze. Here's another freeze gun that works for him. This one looks really weird. It's by DC Direct. It has a very sci-fi look to it, but not at all like the one from the TV show. But I think it fits with this freeze a little better than the black ones. And here's yet another freeze gun that works with him. This is from the Arkham City Mr. Freeze. Once again, color scheme doesn't really match this figure, although I kind of want to go with something a little more basic like this. This is an animated series freeze gun. This is probably the freeze gun I'm deciding to use for this guy. Visually, the color scheme seems to match this figure better, and it is an old school sort of sci-fi crazy looking freeze ray, but not nearly like the one from the TV show. Now that we've taken a pretty good look at the figure, his accessories, and some other accessories you can use to enhance this guy, now let's check out his height. From bottom to the top of his head, he's standing at about 5.9 inches tall, which can translate to about 15 centimeters. Now let's check out his articulation. Starting with his head here, of course, you can rotate from side to side. Can't really do much else. Shoulders on a ball joint, goes up about 90 degrees, up, down, around, all that good stuff. Single jointed elbow, goes in a little bit less than 90 degrees with rotation. His wrists can rotate. Traditional waist swivel. Legs go forward about that far. Knee articulation with swivel, and that's about it. Here's an up-close image of Mr. Freeze with an ice background holding his freeze ray. And of course, Batman and Robin make quick work of Mr. Freeze. Now let's check him out next to some other action figures, starting off with some other Mr. Freeze figures. Here he is, next to a DST where Diamond Select Toys got the Mr. Freeze. Both these guys are live-action TV show incarnations of Mr. Freeze, and neither one has the dome over their head. Then, next to my DC Direct and DC Collectibles Mr. Freeze figures, and here he is, next to all my Mattel Mr. Freeze figures. Here are all the different Mr. Freeze figures that I have. I've got most of them, but I'm missing a couple. I would say this Mattel Batman Mr. Freeze is my favorite of all of them. Here he is, next to several different Frostbite figures. These are some Mr. Freeze henchmen from the Batman and Robin movie. They're older 5-inch scale figures, and are actually too small, even for this Mr. Freeze. Now let's check them out, next to some other McFarlane Batman 1966 figures. Here are all the different villains they've made so far. Joker, Riddler, Mr. Freeze, Penguin, and Catwoman. And I hope they make a bunch more villains. You could easily swap out that Eartha Kitt Catwoman for the Julia Newmar version, and it doesn't make any difference scale-wise. Here he is, next to the McFarlane Batman and Robin. Here's the entire McFarlane 1966 Batman Classic TV series collection. We know the next couple figures are going to be the black and white Batman and Robin, but I personally really hope they give us a King Tut, Egghead, and Bookworm in the future, as well as the other version of Catwoman. the other couple of versions of Mr. Freeze, and some more versions of the Riddler. Here's Mr. Freeze, next to the Mattel 1966 villains. He fits in pretty good with them. And here he is, next to the Mattel Batman, Robin, and Batgirl. Once again, he fits in pretty good with the Mattel line. Now let's check him out, next to some action figures from different various companies, to see how he fits in both scale and style-wise, in case you want to know which lines you can mix him with. Since he's a McFarlane Batman Classic TV series figure, they're typically the 6-inch scale, around the smaller end of what I collect. I'm going to start off my comparisons with some of the smaller action figure lines I collect, and work my way larger. Here he is, next to some Jazzwares Fortnite figures. And here he is, next to some SH Figure Arts action figures. Then, with some Hasbro Marvel Legends. And here, next to some Mafex figures. Then, next to some Mattel DC Universe Classics and Multiverse figures. And here he is, next to some Mezco 112 collective figures. And speaking of Mezco, I'm really excited for their upcoming Mr. Freeze. We got a good look at him at San Diego Comic-Con. Then, with some Mattel wrestling figures. And now, next to some Jazzwares AEW wrestlers. And here, standing next to some NECA figures. Then, with some DC Direct and DC Collectibles figures. And now, next to some McFarlane toys. And here he is, next to some DST or Diamond Select toys. And finally, next to some Jack specific wrestling figures. So overall, he's a very nice figure. I think he's one of the better looking McFarlane 1966 figures. I think they just nailed the face and head sculpt. His accessories are non-existent, and that sucks. His articulation, kind of on the basic side, but it's everything you would expect from McFarlane's retro Batman line. The sculpt and paint job are excellent, no issues there. If I were to rate this figure, I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10. My biggest complaint about this guy, I just wish he was taller. He fits in great with the rest of the McFarlane line, but I really wish they went with the 7-inch scale. That's what prevents me from loving these figures. I like him, but I don't love him. So this is D Hunter. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you liked the video, press like below. If you have anything to say with the video, add to the comment section. If you want to see additional action figure reviews from me, press subscribe. I do appreciate when you do that. Once again, this is D Hunter. Thank you guys for watching this video, and I will talk to you guys real soon.